For those of you who don't know, us as casual competitive members exist to make the mistakes that you want to make, but don't make because you have a normal amount of brain cells. Anyway, this is the game where I convinced Jordan to keep 0 lands in his opening hand on a deck he's never played before. So for those of you who missed our last video, this is game 2 of our nemesis pod. If you want a full explanation on what that means, go ahead and watch that video. But simply put, everyone picked each other's commanders and made them play stuff they didn't want to play and also didn't know how to play. If you want a third game of this pod, head on over to casualcompetitive.tv. We have some exclusive gameplay footage just for members over there. Anyway, let's just jump right into the video and introduce our players.
I'm Jordan, and today I'm playing Yannett. It was chosen by Bill. The way we win is with console or infinite turns with KevNet.
Hi, today I'll be playing Brago, which was picked for me by Nate L. He picked this because it was my original cEDH deck from back in the day, and he kind of wanted me to have a comeback with it. And this deck usually wins with infinite blink effects with Brago's ability, and then Lithoform Engine and other cards, and then use Altar of the Brood or cards like Venser to infinitely mill your opponents or infinitely bounce all their permanents, and then win through combat damage and control.
Hi, my name is Bill, and today I'm playing Lonis Cryptozoologist. This deck was picked for me by Adam because he knows I hate Simic, and he wants to watch me just struggle as I try to figure out how these combos work. The combo in this deck is Academy Manufacturer with Urza and Shrieking Drake to make infinite mana, draw my deck with the clues, and then win with Thassa's Oracle.
Hey everyone, my name's Nate. Today I'm playing Kodama Tymna Stax. This is a deck picked by Jordan just because he likes the deck. He thinks it's really cool. The main win con is sack line with something like Corpse Knight to ping everyone down. That's pretty much it.
Jordan begins this game by casting a Chrome Mox for 0 mana and printing a Muddle and Mixture. He then taps that to cast a Soul Ring. With nothing left and no lands to play, he passes the turn to Adam. Adam plays a snow-covered island and then taps that to play a Mystic Remora. Take a guess on how many cards this Remora is going to get fed in the course of this game. Anyway, with nothing left, he passes the turn to Bill. Bill, in his turn, plays a Rejuvenating Springs and then taps that land to cast a Soul Ring, obviously not paying for Mystic Remora. With nothing left, he gives the turn to Nate. Nate plays an Arid Mesa as his land, which he immediately pays 1 life to crack to shock in a Temple Garden. He then, for 1 mana, casts a Carpet of Flowers, obviously not paying for Mystic Remora, and he then moves to his second main phase, activating his Carpet of Flowers for a green mana to cast a Llanowar Realms. With nothing left, he gives the turn to Jordan. Jordan starts and ends his turn by untapping his mana. Adam pays for the Mystic Remora to keep it around, and then plays a Snow-Covered Plains as his land. He then, for 1 mana, casts a Sensei's Divining Top and then passes the turn. Bill plays a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth as his land, and then casts his commander, Lonis Cryptozoologist. With nothing left, he passes the turn. Nate, in his first main phase, makes a black mana with his Carpet of Flowers, and then plays a Command Tower as his land. He uses that floating mana to help cast one of his partner commanders, Tymna the Weaver, and with nothing left, ships the turn over to Jordan. Jordan has a bad day. On Adam's turn, Adam lets his Mystic Remora die in his upkeep, and then plays a Windswept Heath as his land. He immediately cracks it for a Snow-Covered Plains, and he then casts a Trinisphere. In response to the Trinisphere, Bill casts Force of Negation, exiling Force of Will in order to counter the spell. With nothing left, Adam ships the turn over to Bill. Bill plays a Waterlogged Grove as his land and then casts a 1,000-Year Elixir. He then, for 1 mana, casts a Birds of Paradise, getting a clue token, and then a Bloom Tender, getting another clue token from his commander and losing a life from Waterlogged Grove. He then sacrifices 1 clue to draw 1 card, and with nothing left, he ships the turn over to Nate. Nate goes to his turn and immediately just goes to combat, swinging Tymna at Adam and a 1/1 at Jordan. Neither declare any blockers. Nate gains 2 life and then in his second main phase loses 2 life to draw 2 cards. He also makes a white mana with his Carpet of Flowers in his second main phase and then plays a Swamp as his land for turn. He then taps for 4 mana to cast a Grand Abolisher and follows that up by casting a Mana Vault. Still not done, and finally free of the fish, he taps for 3 mana to cast a Rule of Law, signifying pretty much the end of his turn. He then passes the turn to Jordan. Jordan untaps and for 2 mana casts an Isochron Scepter. He imprints Narset's Reversal, and I think he finally found a way to just easily get around Rule of Law. Just don't have anything to do. Now, Jordan may not have any lands, but you know what he does have? A completely free subscription to this YouTube channel. If you want to join him in this, feel free to scroll below the video, hit that sub button, and while you're there, maybe like the video, turn notifications on, leave a comment for the algorithm because that would be pretty sick. Maybe if you really like the video and want to help support us, go to casualcompetitive.tv and become a member where you get early access to our videos and exclusive member-only content. I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas, but here's a picture of my dog to make up for the fact that you just sat through 30 seconds of an ad read for our own channel. Either way, let's get back to the video. Anyway, Adam goes to his turn, plays a Scalding Tarn as his land, which he cracks for a snow-covered island. He then taps his mana to cast a Linvala, Keeper of Silence. He then passes the turn to Bill. Bill plays an island as his land and then sacrifices a clue to draw a card. He then finishes his turn by casting a Phantasmal Image, copying the Linvala, Keeper of Silence when it enters, and getting a clue token from his commander. Nate then goes to his turn, takes damage from Mana Vault in his draw step, plays an Iganjo, Seed of the Empire, and then immediately goes to combat, swinging Tymna at Jordan. He gains 2 life, then in his second main phase, loses 1 to draw 1, and he also gets 2 green mana from his Carpet of Flowers trigger since an opponent has 2 islands. He uses his mana to help cast his other partner commander, Kodama of the East Tree, and with nothing left, he passes the turn. On his turn, Jordan plays a Bloodstained Mire as his land, which he immediately cracks to shock in a Godless Shrine. With nothing left to do, he ships the turn over to Adam. Adam plays a Sea of Clouds as his land, and then plays Brago King Eternal. In response to this, Bill cracks a clue token, taking 1 damage from Waterlogged Grove, to attempt to draw a card. In response to the clue token activation, Jordan taps for 4 mana to cast Notion Thief. The Notion Thief resolves, and then the clue token resolves, and Jordan draws a card instead. Brago then resolves, and with nothing left, Adam passes the turn to Bill. Bill untaps, plays a Forest as his land, and then just passes the turn over to Nate. Nate takes a damage from Mana Vault on his draw step, and then plays a Verdant Catacombs as his land for turn. He immediately pays 1 life to crack it for a Forest, and on either of these Kodama triggers decides to just pass on them, not having anything to put onto the battlefield. He then goes to combat and swings his commander at Jordan, again gaining 2 life, and in his second main phase, losing 1 to draw 1. He then finishes his turn by casting an Imperial Seal, passing his turn once he successfully tutors the card to the top of his library. Jordan on his turn for 3 mana casts a Rhystic Study, and then goes to pass the turn to Adam, and on Jordan's end step, Adam activates his top to rearrange the top 3 cards of his library. On his turn, Adam casts an Elspeth Conquers Death, not paying for Rhystic Study, and as it enters the battlefield, he has it target Nate's commander, Kodama. In response to this trigger, Nate channels his Boseiju Who Endures to destroy the enchantment. Kodama still gets exiled, but so does Elspeth Conquers Death, and Adam searches up a Plains to the battlefield from the Boseiju. Adam then goes to combat and swings a total of 5 damage at Nate, and on attack, Brago triggers, flickering all of Adam's creatures. With nothing left, Adam passes the turn. Bill plays an island as his land, and then goes to combat and swings 3 damage at Jordan. Jordan declares no blockers, the damage is dealt, and Bill gives the turn to Nate. Nate takes a damage from Mana Vault in his draw step, and in his first main phase, adds 2 white mana from his Carpet of Flowers. He then casts an Elesh Norn. The Elesh Norn resolves and kills pretty much everything except for Adam's stuff at the table. He then goes to combat and swings 4 damage at Adam, 3 at Jordan, and 4 at Bill. The damage is dealt, Nate gains 4 life, and then in his second main phase, loses 3 to draw 3 cards from the Tymna trigger. He then plays a Plains as his land and passes the turn. Jordan plays an island, and then for 0 mana casts a Jeweled Lotus. With nothing left, he goes to pass the turn, and on his end step, Adam activates his Sensei's Divining Top to rearrange the top 3 cards of his library. Adam then goes to his turn and starts his turn by casting a Recruiter of the Guard. He pays Heuristic Study, it then resolves, enters the battlefield, immediately dies, but the ETB ability still goes on the stack, and he tutors up a Solitude. He then goes to pass the turn, and on his end step, Bill activates his Waterlogged Grove in order to draw a card. Bill then goes to his turn and decides to cast a Nature's Claim targeting Rule of Law, not paying for Rhystic Study. It resolves, Nate gains 4 life, and the table is now free to actually play Magic the Gathering. Bill begins this by casting Oko, Thief of Crowns, not paying for Rhystic Study, and then for 0 mana casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Carpet of Flowers, again, not paying for Rhystic Study. He then activates Oko's ability in order to essentially Elk the Elesh Norn, and when that resolves, he casts his commander, Lonis the Cryptozoologist. With nothing left, he passes the turn to Nate. Nate takes a damage from his Mana Vault, and in his first main phase, adds 2 black mana with his Carpet of Flowers. He then casts a Calling Ritual, paying for Rhystic Study. The culling ritual resolves, and Nate gets 13 mana, 4 green and 9 black. He uses this mana to help recast Kodama with 4 black floating remaining, and he then casts an Oran Frostfang, paying for Rhystic Study both times. Kodama triggers from the Oran Frostfang entering the battlefield, and he puts a Battle Angels of Tyr onto the battlefield. He then goes to combat and swings a total of 5 damage at Oko, and he gains 2 life from the lifelink. He then goes to pass the turn to Jordan, and on Nate's end step, Jordan casts a Limb Duel's Vault. Jordan goes 3 life deep into this Limb Duels, and when that resolves, Adam taps for 1 mana to cast an Enlightened Tutor. There are no responses, and with this Enlightened Tutor, he gets a Strionic Resonator. Jordan then goes to his turn, plays an Exotic Orchard as his land, and then for 0 mana casts a Mana Crypt. He then for 1 mana casts a Dark Ritual, and then uses that mana to help cast his commander, Yannett Cryptic Sovereign. He then for 2 mana casts a Wishclaw Talisman, and with nothing left to do, passes the turn to Adam. Adam starts his turn off by casting a Trinket Mage. He does not pay for Rhystic Study, and he gets a Mana Crypt to his hand. He then casts this Mana Crypt, again not paying for Rhystic Study, and he then casts an Altar of the Brood, keeping up with tradition of not paying for Rhystic Study. When Altar enters the battlefield, everybody mills 1 card. Adam then casts his Strionic Resonator, again not paying for Rhystic Study, and when the Strionic Resonator enters the battlefield, everyone mills again from the Altar of the Brood. Adam then goes to combat and swings Brago at Bill. There are no responses to this combat, and Bill cannot block it, so this is what happens. Brago deals combat damage to Bill and puts a Brago trigger on the stack. In response to the Brago trigger to flicker basically all of Adam's non-land permanents, Adam activates Strionic Resonator to copy that effect. The copied effect then resolves, flickering all of Adam's non-land permanents, and when those permanents enter the battlefield, everybody mills from the Altar of the Brood. Now we're back to the stack just having the original Brago trigger, but all of Adam's artifacts are untapped, so he can just activate Strionic Resonator again to again copy the Brago trigger, and basically infinitely flicker his battlefield, including Altar of the Brood, milling everybody out. He then decides to just pass the turn, and no one having any cards in their library ends up losing the game, leaving Adam as the sole survivor of our little warm-up game. We hope you enjoyed this video. This is the last video we have planned for our comeback week, but we have many more games recorded and already being worked on, so you'll see more Magic content very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We hope you guys are excited to see us back. We're super excited to be back. That's all we have for you for now. I am Joseph. This is Casually Competitive, and we will see you guys very soon.